liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Beagle.
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Present.
Councilmember Behrman.
Present.
Councilmember Gotcho.
Here.
Councilmember Grunland Fox. Here. Councilmember Sharp.
Present.
Councilmember Smiley.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. Changes or additions to the agenda as presented tonight, City Manager?
Mayor, I have no changes or additions.
Any from the dais? All right, moving on to approval of minutes. We got one set of minutes to approve tonight. That's from the regular City Council meeting of October 11th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Thank you. Any comments, corrections? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the regular City Council meeting minutes of October 11th, 2022. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We have no correspondence tonight, which brings us to the first call to the public. The rules to the call to the public are as follows. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a vote of the majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council. And all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anybody the first call to the public tonight?
It's always set for somebody taller. My name is Russ Meredith. I live at 378 Fletcher. I am, for better or worse, the newly elected chair of the Wixom DDA, and I'm here to support the mayor's appointment of Leslie Payment to our board. She will be replacing Melanie Cheney, who resigned recently after many, many years of great service to the city, and we definitely need Leslie on her. She managed to make this morning's DDA monthly meeting, and if that didn't scare her off, I think she should definitely be voted for approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else for the first call to the public? Seeing none, I'll close the first call to the public and move on to city managers' reports, the departmental reports of September 2022. Any questions? Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to comment on kind of the joint meeting that was September 12th between the Parks and Rec and DDA and the library, and wanted to thank Director McGee and Library Director Dixon and DDA Director Cloutier and Chair Menzie of the P&R Parks and Rec, just for getting together and having a pretty productive meeting. It looked like, I know there's a lot of work to do, especially regarding the playground, but it looked like the right step forward to have those organizations all working closely together, so thank you.
Councilmember Grunland Fox.
Thank you. I had a question regarding the F&B report. I don't know if I missed it, but I haven't seen anything lately about the Tri-Bar spill. Are there any updates on what's going on with that?
No, well, yes, I'm sorry, Councilwoman. We are continuing to monitor the situation. We pull samples every day from the plant, and we get those tested. The numbers are in the low and non-detect areas. And as discussed before, the solids, all the chrome that got reduced to trivalent chrome has been trapped in the solids, and we've been slowly getting them out of the plant. They're under constant scrutiny, and we're doing well with it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, seeing now, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished or new business. Do I have a motion? Move.
Support.
I got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented tonight. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moves us on to the discussion portion of our meeting, and it's the charter amendment process. City Manager Brown, you want to handle this, or should we just hand over to Councilmember Gotcho?
I didn't have anything to add other than the cover memo, which just indicates that we had the memo that came from the Charter Amendment Committee, which had categorized the different things that had been discussed within the committee, and pressing should be discussed, housekeeping, and non-issue categories. And then it's up to council as to what you're looking to have a discussion for tonight.
All right. Well, I'll start this out, and I think the discussion tonight should be on the pressing and should be discussed items only. Those are the ones that are that like what they're described, they're pressing, they should be discussed, they both should be ready, as those are the ones that will probably be amended when we do the charter amendment and we put it in front of the citizens. So I think those are the two items we should talk about tonight and leave the housekeeping and non-issues for another night. It's up to council's choice on that, but we'll go from there. Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you, Mayor Beagle. Just wanted to say I concur. Let's, just take a couple bites at a time. Thank you.
All right, this time I'll turn it over to Councilmember Getchell.
Thank you. So to go through the memo, hopefully everyone had time to read and then compare our notes to what was going on with the charter. But I don't know if we want to try to get through all the pressing should be discussed. At least discussing the pressing in my mind tonight would be helpful. And then we have a couple more months to break up other ones if we want. But the first kind of ranked pressing issue, according to our committee, was section 4.11E, which, as you'll know in the description of our memo, discusses the terms for appointed members. We've always been in a habit of either leaving a seat vacant if a person was appointed and then chose not to run for re-election, which has happened, or if a person was appointed and ran for election and was elected by voters, then we appointed them for the remaining few months from that meeting in November through when everyone else's term normally ends and begins on January 1. So this was cleaning up that issue, which is really just inefficient way of doing business. So I'm not sure what everyone else's thoughts were, but that was one that everyone has kind of moaned about at some point. So,
Discussion? Deputy Mayor Resnick?
I mean, I concur. We've had a lot of confusion over the years, and there always seems to be a gap where there's a vacant seat up here, unnecessarily, we feel, but for the charter members.
Councilmember Berman?
I haven't seen where it's been an issue. I can see where it could potentially be an issue. I actually benefited by getting an extra 2 months up here because of this this wording. I guess my question is, in a perfect world, should it be fixed? Probably. Is it worth the cost and sending it, and the trouble to send it out to the voters? Is this something we need to fix or we want to fix? Is, I guess, where I would be.
I guess just to jump in, all of this would be not done during a special election. So all the polling stations would be set up as is. So you would have the attorney review and draft the language, but realistically, this is a very simple kind of change that wouldn't, I think, cost the city very much money.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the expense would be, fairly minimal. All of these items, whether they're considered pressing or discussion that we have, that we've flushed out, are, none of them are detrimental or emergencies. They're just in an effort to clean up a charter that, hasn't been, touched or cleaned up in quite a while. This is a good item. This is the perfect case for what we got together to do, and the expense shouldn't be a roadblock. I believe, and I haven't polled or looked at all of the different surrounding communities, but I think most communities I'm aware of that have their swearing in is immediately after the election, and we wait till January. I'd love to know why that was set up at that way back when. Just out of curiosity, not maybe there's some insight that we're not thinking of, but it's just really to clean up the idea that someone's elected and then they got to wait almost 2 months before they take their seat up here, And it just, it's an easy, this is, it's on our list of pressing, but I think it's an easy fix and kind of a slam dunk for, because we've talked about it for years, how it needs cleaning up.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. I support all those positions. Councilmember Behrman said he got an extra 2 months, but I actually had to sit out part of a meeting so I could get voted back in by council because I was appointed midterm to fill a seat that expired on the election day, not on January 1st, which was a little awkward. So I'd like to fix it, but if it's the only thing we're fixing, then I wouldn't support doing this. But if there are more items, yes, we should fix this one. Thank you.
Yeah, there'll be more items, and like everyone has said, the expense will be minimal because of the fact that we're not going to do a special election. It's going to be on a date that we're going to have an election anyway, so.
A year from now.
Yeah, well, yeah, or it could be August.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yep. So, Councilmember Berman?
Councilman Smiley brought up a decent point. A lot of the other communities around us, they immediately take office after the election. Maybe perhaps that would be a better option for us to pursue to change this issue and not have that weird gap. Because it is kind of odd that you get elected and then there's 2 months that, you know, we could have 3 new people elected to council, and for 3 months, 3 people are sitting up here bitter because they didn't get re-elected. And I'm not saying that would necessarily happen, but I think we all have the good interest for the city in heart. But is that something that we've considered? Why not going the way other cities are doing it, where they take office immediately after the election?
I think that's what we are.
Yeah, Councilmember
Guster? It's been discussed before, not at a council meeting, but I know I've had a discussion with other people. My personal thoughts on that are, especially when I was elected the first time, I was coming to meetings for like a year ahead of time anyway, but for people to kind of get that onboarding time of being at the meetings, plus there's business that we vote on in those November and December meetings that the other person wasn't necessarily a part of those discussions or doesn't know the background. So to me, I don't have a problem continuing as we are with everyone's term going to January 1st, just to wrap up business that might have been on the table or in the works and whatnot, rather than a wholesale change, because I think that would stand a greater chance if we have something big coming up that all of us are working on, and then we all decide not to run or we're not reelected, and a whole new group comes up. All of the time and effort that city staff has been putting in those projects may very well be out the window. So I think how we have it now is good, but with this change.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Yeah, I just want to agree with that. The onboarding time to me was very invaluable in that, you went to meetings, you learned how things were going on, and we got our audit letters in, what was it, August, right? But you were not part of that if all of a sudden you have to take a seat up here and then go through the audit in December, the audit report from the auditor. So I think it's a good idea to have that onboarding time as well. And it happens in presidential elections as well.
Councilmember Garland Fox?
I'd just like to add that, so we talked about all of these issues at length. And again, what were the ones that we thought were the most pressing? And I do support moving this one along.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thanks again. Just so I'm clear, so the portion I was talking about where we would swear new people in November, that's a separate element. That's not a part of this cleanup.
Right.
So we leave that alone. So someone elected in November would still be sworn in January. This is only when there's an empty seat up here, maybe by appointment or what have you. Right. Okay. I support that too.
Okay, so I think To move on with this, I guess we'll take a vote to see on the first item on the pressing, the section 4.11.e. All those in favor with pressing on as the way it's presented, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so that one's approved. We'll move on.
Is that
that one?
I'm sorry, just a matter of rules. Is this a new business item then that we're doing, or is that an informal vote?
It's
really
it's not an informal vote, but it's a
It's a straw poll.
It's a straw poll to let the committee know that we're good with that one. Let's get it rolling so we can get the wording up to Lansing and get it to our lawyers so we can get it on the ballot.
Consensus, then.
Consensus, correct.
Business item.
Yes.
We're doing. Okay.
Yes.
Then I vote yes.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Castro, you want to go on to the next one, section 6.11.b?
So the only other pressing matter that we came across as a committee was Charter Section 6.11b, which relates to compensation. All of 6.11 relates to compensation. B discusses that no officers shall be paid on a fee basis. Where this comes into conflict is how the city has evolved since the 80s when this was initially written. If we had an in-house attorney, if we had an in-house assessor, those functions are now handled outside of city administration or full-time employees, yet they are still, in terms of the charter, city official roles. And so we currently pay our attorney on a fee basis. There might be a case that we pay for our assessing services to the county on a fee basis as well. So this was more of a conflict of how we are currently doing business and how we have been for frankly a number of years, and that not gelling necessarily with the current charter language from the 80s. So our recommendation would be to have the attorney draft language to address the fee basis discussion, whether it can be paid, those roles which are handled by outside vendors can be paid on a fee basis where appropriate. That's not to say that the city manager will become an independent contractor and will start billing out hourly for that, like things like that. So that was one thing that really didn't match between how we do business and what the charter says at the moment.
Assistant City Manager Benson, the assessor, do we pay them on a fee basis or do we pay them under contract yearly?
Well, it is a contractual service. The fee is based, I believe, a certain rate per parcel. So I believe that would qualify as a fee payment.
Okay, thanks. Any discussion? All right. Straw poll. If everybody's in agreement, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, very good. We seem to be doing okay here. Let's move on with some should be discussed, and we'll get as far along as we can.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Let's skip that one.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to jump into this one, Section 9.2 talks about taxation procedures and tax limit. It has been mentioned by members of former councils, current council members, to have a nice deep look at the charter millage cap, essentially. Right now, as everyone is aware, we have the additional up to 3.5. We don't use all of that, but we have to have that because of our charter millage cap. So this being put on into the memo, as it should be discussed, was more of a nod to comments that have been made by council members as wanting to have this discussion. So we thought it would be an appropriate time to have the discussion.
Very good. Deputy Mayor Resnick.
I'm the guilty one. I've been bringing it up since 2006.
I wasn't going to name
That's why your name's in capital letters here.
I was going to go back through my notes. I didn't have time today to go back, but I think it was 1986 when that was said. Is that correct, Mr. Brown? Do you recall?
I don't.
Okay, but
November 3rd of 1987.
87. We are in 2022. I went back and looked at some salaries over that almost 40-year time frame, right? 35-year time frame. I mean, think about it, right? This has been frozen. We are hampered by it, by having to go through these up to 3.5 millage in addition to our charter cap. I mean, we should come into the millennium. I think it should be amended.
Much agreed. Anybody else? Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. I just feels like a big educational effort to get the voting public on board with changing the millage and trying to explain that it wouldn't be a tax increase. And I'm just wondering about the optics of it, where we've got millions of dollars in the bank that we're not using. This year we are, but in 2023 fiscal year, we've agreed to pull $3 million out of our savings to fund roads and other things. So I might consensus no on this one, but I like the idea. I just feels like a big effort.
Well, it will be a big effort, but that's why we're doing it now, so by the time it gets to the voters, it'll be worded in a way that they'll understand.
No tax increase.
And it'll be it'll give us a chance to get our campaign going on it too and educate the public. So.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, you're right. We got to get it.
Councilmember Sharp, Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. To me as well, this is when we talk about logistics of any of these. When our up to 3.5 still has 2 more years, is it?
I believe it is 2 more years.
So to me, this isn't, I would almost match up this with that sunsetting. That way it's easier for people to understand that it's not going to be a higher base rate plus the up to whatever amount. It's just, we're lumping this in. I think it also, if we went that route, would give us time to really study what that new number should be. It shouldn't, in my book, it shouldn't just be 8 plus 3. There should be some other thought process behind it. So I would be in favor of studying this more, figuring out what the number should be, figuring out how we want to go about it. But I think I would agree it's a discussion that we do need to have. I don't like playing the up to 3.5 game every 4 years. It doesn't look good and it's not efficient. So,
Councilmember Berman?
I agree it needs to move forward, and maybe the number needs to be 12, maybe it needs to be 13. We can figure out what the number needs to be. But I don't like the idea of waiting until the current special millage is up. Because what then happens if this doesn't pass? Then we're immediately at the point where we have to lay people off and slash a substantial portion of our budget. I feel a lot more comfortable trying to address this next year with everything else, and if God forbid this doesn't happen, we still have another year to educate the public on the special millage we have now. I sure would hate to put all our eggs in one basket and be in a situation where we're having to slash $3.5 million from our budget.
Councilmember Smiley? Were you done?
Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Smiley.
Councilman Barrett makes an excellent point. I completely agree. We have to be very wary of the timing of this and the education process because somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I'm fairly certain it has failed before quite a while ago, but there was an attempt to raise it 10 years ago.
it'd be 9. Yeah.
9 years ago.
It was right before I ran first.
Oh, okay. So yeah, and certainly if we were to raise it, we would end the special millage. But we've discovered over the many years that special millage is absolutely necessary to keep things, keep the ships, afloat here and running well. So it's really critical that we have a situation where if it were to fail, we would still have the special millage. We got to do that.
Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. Yeah, I would say if it's going to be a tax increase, it might be a tough sell. You started throwing out 12 and 13, I was thinking like lower than 11, hopefully. But where my next thought is, it comes from your comments, but also the logistical thing is, we study this more, if everyone's on board, is we can also write the language, I would think, on the ballot proposal so the rate it takes effect in a certain taxable year that to coincide with the sunsetting of the next millage. So again, that's all stuff for us to work out as we think about how we want to do it. To me, it's just something we do need to look at.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Yeah, and just a clarification, so everybody's on the same page. It's a charter cap increase, not a millage increase. That gives council the authority to use up to that point. So we wouldn't have to act immediately if anything passed, if the cap increase passed. It's just that now we have, if we be into the 2000s, in the current millennium.
Anybody else? Councilmember Smiley?
Just to buttress Deputy Mayor Resnick's point that every 4 years, or when we want to renew the special millage, a lot of our services are put in jeopardy, and this is the purpose of this. The whole idea behind raising the cap is to safeguard what is necessary to make Wixom the fantastic town that it is. Things would change dramatically if someone else made this point already. Things would change dramatically if, for some reason, our special millage were to fail, even once. So you're right. It's not really an increase. It's more just a safety measure, I guess, for our for what is needed to run the town. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's going to be part of the plan that we'll be working on in the future, and maybe we should have when we discuss this next time, maybe a special meeting before the council meeting, so we've got an hour, and maybe we can have Marilyn here to help us out with some numbers and stuff like that, and we can come up with some numbers and how to proceed and a game plan to move on. Does that sound fair up here?
I'd advocate that maybe we, as a staff, do some research just to see what surrounding communities are at, what the rationale was. Was it just original charter limitations? Was there any changes recently? That kind of thing. Try to gather some data that way, give you some things to at least think about as to why things might be set at certain levels, and then you can consider what you want to do as a council.
This is a big item, but we're going to need all the information we can get to make the proper judgment. Yep. Very good. Moving on to section 4.12. Councilmember Gacho?
Do we want to take a little consensus on that or no?
Well, I think it's fair that we'll come back and we may have a special meeting, but we'll have more time to discuss that. We'll go on.
So the next section has a few points to it. The first is just a general thought as we're going through this. Section 4.12 discusses independent boards and commissions. The first general thought was, again, respecting the wishes of some council members, that primarily being me in this case. Since Deputy Mayor outed himself on the last one, I'll do it on this one. But we've had instances, it's been reduced a bit now, but in the past we've had instances where one person not elected, just appointed by a mayor, was appointed to numerous boards simultaneously. And so it's not really building from within the community, I guess, to bring in more people into the fold and have an impact on the city when you have a few people on multiple boards. So those were my thoughts in wanting to bring this up. I would like to have a policy where one person, like one board per person, I guess would be the way to state it, but obviously everyone else can share your thoughts.
Councilmember Berman?
I know some of the boards are more hands-on and more work than others. I can say from being on the Zoning Board of Appeals, it was beneficial to have a member that was both on the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals, so they could bring that knowledge from the Planning Commission meetings to our ZBA meetings. You know, and I know like the ZBA doesn't meet but a couple times a year, so maybe if someone wants to be more involved, being on a lesser board like the Parks and Rec Commission, like I know one member was on both. I don't have an issue with people serving on multiple boards if they're the best person that's coming forward and wanting to give their time to the community.
Councilmember Smiley?
Councilman Behrman said that perfectly. I was going to be much more clunky about it. So what he said, I really like the idea of you know, having some expertise that crosses over, you know, here and there. I understand the idea that ideally we'd have this, you know, great mix, but unfortunately, you know, the doors aren't getting knocked down to get onto a, you know, one of our board or commissions. So, and I guess even if there was, you know, just the best person, you know, for the job is always, you know, I think should always be desirable. And then it occurred to me, you know, we've never had really an issue. We've never had you know, any kind of problem with, you know, a resident serving on multiple boards that I'm aware of. You know, maybe there's some other, you know, some things that I'm not aware of, but I have a certain if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of feel here, and you know, we still have we still have a few vacancies. And we fill in a couple tonight, yeah, but that doesn't fill all the spots. So I would hate to, you know, dump somebody off just because because ideally we wouldn't have, you know, one person serving on multiple spots. So I don't have the passion for, you know, making this real change like you know, like some.
Councilmember Grellen-Fox?
Question for administration. I believe that most communities only have one person serve on one board. But do you have any idea if there's rationale, positive or negative, for either way, allowing one person to be on multiple boards or keeping it one person per board?
Right. Some of the stuff that's already been discussed, Councilmember Gottschall more or less spoke about the potential issue of, you know, having one person serving many different roles and having a little bit more authority in one person than maybe you'd consider ideal. That could be a concern. I do understand the concern also of availability being one of the key determiners of this, and we are not blessed with an overabundance of people that are interested in serving on boards and commissions at this current time. And I think that's not just unique to Wixom, by the way. I think it's something that's happening in a lot of different communities across this area and beyond. So I think those are the two key things to consider. I think it really just is a choice for council to consider whether you think it's appropriate to try to limit that to one spot or if it's something you're concerned about. And I do also think it's relevant on the Planning Commission side, where there's the Planning Commissioner that serves as a sort of a liaison with the Zoning Board of Appeals is something that has been well practiced here in Wixom and has worked well. So there's a lot of different things to consider there, pros and cons. So I'm taking the whip out here, and I'm not giving you my opinion on it. It's something I think is just really a question of whether you see if it's being broke, as Councilmember Smiley might have said as well, or if you think the status quo has worked fine. It has not been a big issue in this town in terms of appointing somebody to, you know, 4 or 5 different spots. It's not something that I've seen happen. It's not something I've ever been aware of happening in the past. But it does allow some flexibility if you have a dearth of candidates where you might be able to do that if it makes sense. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Yeah, I think, you know, Councilman Behrman summed it up nicely, but it's also my recollection that our planning consultant and perhaps someone from Oakland County had suggested at that time that zoning and planning, that someone be appointed to both. And it's when we had some of our first discussions on redevelopment ready communities that came up. And I think it worked well. And the other one that just happens, sometimes coincidental, as Seniors Commission and Cemetery Board. It's just one of those things that I don't have any problem with it, and I think it was at the recommendation of our planning consultant and perhaps Oakland County at that time.
And somebody to get a lot of different roles would obviously have to have at least a majority vote of council to do that, so there is control on it from that standpoint as well.
And go ahead.
I was just going to add, I know the DDA has talked about, interest in collaborating more specifically with the Planning Commission, whether that's on subcommittees or the board itself. So just to note, they've talked about having some interest in that. And could play well to communicate what the vision is there.
Yeah, I know, like, when we get applicants, and when I look at them, usually the applicants, they're putting in that they will be on 2 or 3 different committees, and I try not to have multiple people, one person on multiple committees. The only one that I really would even consider would be the ZBA/planning, because I did think that was beneficial, but that'd be the only way I would do it. So I guess my opinion on this is, it's, just leave it the way it is and we'll move on. Anybody else? Councilmember Smiley.
Just to clarify, so what you're saying, you were already kind of trying to, spread it out and not have any duplicates, but you don't want to have to do that because that creates some other issues. Okay, just wanted to clarify. I think we should. Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to next one, 4.12D.
Thank you. So this comes from, let me get back to my spot here. Same section overall in terms of independent boards and whatnot. But the current method for mayoral appointments, obviously we get the applications now in our packet. Under some former mayors, we didn't ever see those. And so it kind of talks to the self-regulation that the current mayor has when he appoints things. Previous mayors have not had that self-regulation, and we did have at times multiple people on 2 boards. But whereas right now we're just getting the application, the discussion amongst committee members was maybe an opportunity to meet appointees or some other process instead of or in addition to just a paper application with, are you a resident, are you not a resident, what board do you want to be on, who do you know, and what's your background. So I think, unless other committee members can jump in, but this was more of just a, do we want more information when we're voting on these people?
For me, I try to have these applications in here, and when they're coming before you for the recommendation, I try to have them here so they can introduce themselves. But I guess to me, like on a board or a commission, it's part of the mayor's job to do something like that. I mean, if it was, if we had to fill a vacancy on the dais here, I can see us going to a different route. But as far as the procedures that we do now, I really don't see. They're not broke, so I really don't think we should try to fix it. But that's just my opinion. Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Yeah, I'm fine with the way we have been doing it. That's a mayoral appointment or a recommendation based on the applications that come in. I mean, we get, too few of them as it is for the size of our community. So I'm fine with it as long as we get a chance to see the application before we approve it. By consensus up here, I'm fine with the current process that we do. I've made recommendations to this mayor and former mayors in the past. I got a neighbor who stated an interest in Parks and Rec, whatever, and we all have that ability to do that and encourage that person to get involved. So I'm fine with it.
Councilmember Garland Fox.
I know in some communities, several communities, they have a process where Councilmember Batchelor explained it a little bit, where if someone is interested in being on a board or commission, they fill out an application, then they come before council, each council member can ask them a question. Just gets that familiarity between the council and the person that wants to volunteer. I think it makes them feel good that they're here, that they can interact and talk with council. I think it's a nice thing to do.
Councilman Gatchel.
Thank you. Yeah, the last point in this one, again, it comes down to the practice of the mayor. You've been very good in self-regulating and making sure we have information. I know other people that have been in your position have not. And so that's the thing is, and I brought up with other discussions before on other things, is just because one person does things the way we like, doesn't mean that that's how everybody will do it unless the guidelines are there for them to do it a particular way, so.
And I won't be here forever.
So that's just my thoughts as to where some of these come from is making sure that there's guidelines for how everyone feels. I mean, everyone probably feels that things are done well right now, but the next person, whoever that may be, if they want to appoint the same person to every board and get a rubber stamp through, that becomes an issue, so.
Councilmember Smiley?
I've got opposing thoughts on, that are both sides of this, because I like the idea that, we all have some say in who our, board and commissions is. And, we have a mayor right now who's, very happy to listen to suggestions, or, I think I've thrown a few names. Well, usually what I do is I tell, residents who are interested, hey, there's a process, go through that, and I might, bend the mayor's ear to tell them about that person. But the next mayor, we're a long time from now, whoever that might be, may not be as, open to that. And then that said, the other side of it is, the mayor, he's the mayor. He's got a couple of things that he gets to, be in charge of, and I don't want to take that away from him. And the mayor was elected, so the mayor is, the residents of Wixom said, we like this guy to make the decisions, X, Y, Z. So changing this doesn't feel like the right thing to do, and I definitely see the case for both sides. So that sounds so waffly, but I'm inclined to leave it be. Thank you.
Councilmember Berman?
I think some of us are missing the language in the current proposal that, or in the current language in our charter, is that anyone that's getting appointed right now by the mayor, it has to be confirmed by a majority vote of us already. So if we get a mayor in the future that doesn't want to share information with us, all we have to do is table his motion to appoint until we get the information. If we want to go to a process in the future of letting the applicant come up here and asking them questions, we can do that. I don't see that why this needs to be done through a charter amendment. This is something we all have the power right now. If we decide this evening that we don't want to move forward with these two people that have volunteered to give their time to our city because we want to ask them questions, we can table the new business item for them to come back and ask them questions if they're not here. I don't see why this needs to be a charter amendment by any stretch of imagination. I'm fine with the way it's currently written and the way we're doing it currently.
All right, so I guess the consensus here is leave it as is for now, and we'll return to it at a later date if we feel we need to. So we'll move on to section 4.12.e. Excuse me.
So this section has come up with prior appointments before. I've made objection to appointments with this as well. The charter language, it states each member of a city board or commission shall have been a resident of the city for at least 1 year prior to the date of his appointment and shall be a qualified and registered elector of the city on such day and through his tenure of office. Exception to this residency requirement may be granted if the reason for appointment of a particular individual conflicts with this paragraph. This has been interpreted different ways over time as people see fit. And so we have a few boards like the DDA where it's made up of some of our residents, but also members of our downtown area, business owners of our downtown area. To me, that would be pretty much the only allowable case for allowing non-residents, but that's not clarified in here as to what the reasons for, what would be allowable for waiving it, these requirements. And so right now our LDF, or our tax abatement committee, is the majority of them are not Wixom residents and not Wixom voters, and yet they're reviewing tax abatement applications and making recommendations when it doesn't truly impact them on a daily basis as much as it does residents. And they can leave, they can have impact on tax abatements for their competitors without recusing themselves. So to me, this is one that I think we should maybe outline where or what the allowable boards would be, or what the reasons for waiving them should be. The only one on the tax abatement review board, we have to have a member of Walled Lake Schools because they're a taxing entity, and so they have to sign off on the abatement. That would be like a legitimate reason. So again, this is open for everyone's discussion, but this point was to hopefully clarify what is written in the charter.
Good. Councilmember Berman.
My only comment on that would be the same. The checks and balances of that is that it requires a majority vote of the council. And I feel like if a majority of the council feels like a business owner who doesn't necessarily live in the city would be a good candidate to be on one of our committees, we should have the ability to go down that path. And I don't like the idea of hamstringing future councils from making the best recommendation for members of our boards.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you. And then, and along those same lines, any kind of tax abatement would come before us as well. So if there was any, I don't know, anything iffy or contradict or any conflict of interest, we would be able to review that too. But I also wanted to follow up with a question. You said none of the tax abatement are residents?
I said the majority.
Oh, majority, sorry, okay. But they're all at least business owners in Wixom, except for the Walled Lake.
Business owners slash executives of businesses.
Yeah, okay, so there's nobody who's totally unconnected to the city there, other than the Walled Lake representative, which is a understandable exception. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Garland Fox?
Thank you. Again, a question for administration. I've never heard, when I saw this, I was surprised. I have never heard of a board or a commission not being a resident of the community. Do you know where that came from or why? The history behind that?
I don't. I can only kind of speculate as to what's been kind of commented to me here and there. It's in relation to like the business-oriented committees, like the tax abatement review committee being something might be difficult to find residents who would be interested in that. So it was, I think part of the rationale was that it would be somebody that was at least knowledgeable of the businesses in town, the business community, the business environment in Wixom would be somebody who would be qualified to serve on that, so we want to allow that exception. I don't have any kind of formal notes or anything like that. That's just what I pieced together.
It's very, very rare.
Indeed, it's not typical.
I would just add that in other communities, specifically for DDAs, I would say that's a very common thing to have happen because of the business ownership or employment situation.
That makes sense.
That was the one thing that I was going to make mention of, is DDAs. Pretty routinely, that is common. Tax abatement review committee, I'd have to do some research on if there was similar bodies like that in other communities, what their practices are. I can check into that if you're interested.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Check into that for us, thanks. Anybody else?
I was just going to add that it is very, very common for DDAs
Yeah. Yeah.
Think about 50% of our tax.
Oh, no, it makes sense, I think that was the research that Steve was gonna do.
Right, we'll check into that.
So I'm going to put that one down for further discussion. Sound good? All right, move on to section 4.11.E.
So this one was also offered under pressing, but there was a separate portion of the discussion as well, where it comes down to how we currently handle council vacancies, not just the terms as we discussed earlier, but in the sense of do we treat it just as an application? It's been handled primarily as a mayoral appointment in the past, and sometimes the people meet with other council members, sometimes they don't. Some of us have advocated for turning it into more of an interview process at a meeting. That way people can ask questions and answer them in front of the public, which is a very common practice throughout all the surrounding communities. So that would, again, this is a discussion topic for everyone.
I'll just put again, I guess that's, for me, I feel that that's being elected as mayor, that's part of my job is to, when they come for me to appoint these people, and again, if you, for some reason, you choose not to support or whatever, that's your decision, but that's part of the duties as being the mayor, so I personally wouldn't want to see things like that changed, but Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to see it changed. I think the transparency is important to publicize it. We publicize every public hearing and lots of meeting notices and all the agendas on the council. And for people not to know they have the opportunity to be on city council, I just feel like we should do something. I don't know exactly how the process would work, whether it's interviews or, there's an open enrollment time where they can send in their applications, and then the mayor becomes more familiar with people at that point too, what the pool of candidates might look like if it's publicized. But not that I wouldn't expect Mayor Beagle to do the honorable thing and let everybody know, but other mayors may forget that they need to publicize it and tell people that there's an opening on council. And because we're talking about the other commissions and boards, those are advisory roles, except for planning commission. The others are really just advisory, and city council's not. They're ordinance making, they're law making, and taxing and all that, which really needs to be represented by the constituency. So I'd really like to see some more formality in how the replacements are named for city council. Thank you.
Councilmember Granlund-Fox?
I agree with the previous speaker, as well as I mentioned before, it would be nice to ask those people questions. Somebody that wanted to be on council to fill a seat. I know, just for instance, when I was asked to fill a vacant seat, some people wanted to ask me questions, other people didn't. It was kind of, there was no set process, and I think it would just be nice to have a set, clear process.
Councilmember Concho.
Thank you. I agree with the previous two council members in terms of wanting to have an application process. It's something that I've said before. Many cities do an open application process and then interviews based on whoever wants to apply. But when it comes to how this appointment is worded in the description, it's not a mayoral appointment. It says that vacancies occurring in the office of council shall be, with timeframes in there, done by a majority vote of the remaining members of council. There's no mention of the mayor interviewing or appointing people. Again, it's a practice thing. I think that you've done a much better job than previous mayors have with this, but that's something that needs to be formalized to protect from abuse and not giving everyone a chance to come out and be appointed if they want to be, and not giving other council members the opportunity to ask questions to find out qualifications and whatnot in order to vote on someone. So again, not a mayoral appointment in this case, but unfortunately that's how it's been treated by others in the past.
Councilmember Berman?
Again, I'm totally fine with us changing the policy and the way that we do this, but I'm not seeing where this needs to be a charter amendment. If the majority of us up here want to do an application process and have people come in for an interview, we have the power to do that right now the way our charter is written. This doesn't need to be an amendment. This just needs to be a consensus that if we have a vacancy, we're going to publish the vacancy, take applications, and do an interview process. We don't need a charter amendment for this to happen. We just need us as a group to come together and say that this is what we want. Because we have, the majority of council has the power up here, not one person. That's just the way I see it. I think that's the way we should look at that. And if we want to make that change, let's just make it, agree that we're going to make it when there's another vacancy. But I don't see any reason why this needs to be a charter amendment.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you. Real quick, just there's more items in here that really don't require a charter amendment, but all of this came from the charter. These are our guidelines and rules. So just because it's here and we need to discuss it and we need to potentially change something, doesn't mean that it's got to be an amendment that goes to the people. There's some cleanup items in here. With that said, our previous, Mayor Ziegler, your former Mayor Ziegler, he, for one of his appointments, I recall him having us all come in and talk to him and encouraged us to go talk to so-and-so, whoever the particular, council appointee was going to be. I think he did that once, but he didn't do it for another, and I think having a cleaned up sort of process that we can all kind of count on and expect, and just keeps things, keeps things clean and transparent is a very good idea. I don't know if it has to be in the. Well, I guess if we don't have it as a rule, what's to prevent, what's to keep the mayor from, not following it. So maybe this does need to be something that's in the charter. We need a lawyer. Oh, maybe Steve is out.
Yeah, if I could offer a little bit of input on it just real quickly. Talked briefly offline with the clerk about this. There's the rules of procedure document that the council establishes in the first meeting in January when new council takes office. That would be something you could potentially put in there as a policy-driven kind of thing, that if you have a council vacancy, you follow this procedure kind of thing. If that's something you wanted to discuss at that meeting in January when a council takes office, or any time you want to address your rules of procedure, that's just the usual time that we address it. So that could be something to consider in that kind of venue and setting a policy there.
Yeah, that seems. Let me just finish up real quick. That seems like that would be all we need to do. But I still like the idea that the mayor can sort of drive the bus and sort of be the one to initiate the appointees, and we have to approve of it. So it's best that we all kind of get to talk to that person and get a good feel for whether it's the choice that we like or not. So there's something to do here, but not a full-on amendment.
As a person who's had a lot of conversations with attorneys, I would caution you to not do anything that would contradict the charter within the rules of procedure. That would be the only guideline that I would worry about, right?
Of course.
So, if it's not in there that it's this way or that way, then, if the charter's silent on something, you could address it. In this case, I think it is silent on the process, so you could put that in the rules of procedure document is my suggestion.
Yeah, good point, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So to address Councilmember Behrman's point about the power of the majority of the council, the problem is you don't have a majority, you got 6, and the chance of a tie is a possibility. Somebody's not here. And that happened a couple years ago, and I felt really bad for the person. And I don't know if it was the person or the process, but I know at the time there was a big debate on both, and there wasn't any established process. And the question came up, well, who else did the mayor talk to before making this appointment? And the mayor didn't really have an answer because he hadn't talked to anybody else, and nobody on council had talked to anybody else either. I felt really bad for the person because that person had run, was the next up, didn't get voted in. Then there was a vacancy and asked to be on council, and he didn't get a shot at it. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, I'm just saying the process was flawed at the time, and just relying on our rules at the beginning of the year, I don't think are sufficient to solve that problem. So I'd like to try to put a little more structure in it. I'm not saying we still would have a 3 versus 3 potential, but then it wouldn't be about the person or the process, it would just be about the person at that point, which...
Yeah, so I guess for me on this one, put some pressure on the committee to go back and come up with policy that we can follow on this procedure, and to have it done so we can have it looked at by our lawyer to make sure it's legal, so we can vote on it at that first meeting in January during the rule procedure. Does that sound like? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment earlier that, you know, our charter language is very consistent with, I looked at like 4 surrounding communities, and all of them are for a vacancy of an elected office by the majority of the then still existing city council. So that's very consistent with Novi, Waldeck, and other surrounding communities. What differs is the timing of it. You know, some have 120 days, some have 30 days and whatnot. And they differ a little bit with mayor and mayor pro tem or deputy mayor. But for other elected offices, they're very consistent. They don't specifically call out either the procedure by which that vacancy is brought to council, but it's all majority of the then still existing council. I just wanted to bring that up. It's not inconsistent with surrounding communities.
Councilmember Gatcho?
Correct. Wolverine Lake is worded pretty similarly to us, but they handle it through interviews, and whether that's by ordinance or policy. We talked about, you know, that thing we vote on at the first meeting of every January. We've never voted on it. Since I've been up here, conferred with the mayor, we've never voted on it since he's been up there. So it's not something we review annually in terms of here's our policies and procedures as council. If we want to start doing that, that'd be phenomenal, but that's not something that has happened. And again, this is cleaning up. It's been said that it doesn't necessarily have to be a charter amendment thing, but it should be solidified so it isn't changed at the whim of whoever wants to change it. And if that means it should be a charter amendment, then it should be a charter amendment. Because what happened a few years ago was just about the process. And as the council member mentioned, there was no process other than this is who I want, and I think I have the votes to get it, which didn't turn out to be true. It made the whole city look bad. It made the person that had been put up or nominated look bad. And that's when I talk about things being treated as a mayoral appointment, even though it's not. That was the example in recent times. That was horrible. So I would agree if we can come up with some language. We can also talk to the attorney if it should be an ordinance or something, but I would really want to make sure that this isn't something that gets changed just because someone wants to change it. It is codified in some sense that this is how it's done, not this is how we want to do it this time, but maybe not next time.
Any more comments? All right, so yeah, let's move on to see what we can do policy-wise, and we'll go from there. Let's handle one more of these because it looks like the next couple of ones could be a lengthy discussion on those, and we'll tackle those maybe at the next council meeting in November. Section 3.8.
So this would be adding an alternative for filing for mayor or council. A number of other jurisdictions and at different levels and different communities allow individuals to either collect signatures on a petition and turn those in or pay a filing fee. Right now, Wixom just does signatures. So it was just a discussion within the committee, no preference one way or the other, but just a note of, hey, since we're having this discussion amongst council, is this something that we would potentially want to add or not?
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
I think I've stated this before when we had the first discussion. I still find a lot of value in collecting petition signatures, mainly it gets the candidate out there and talking to people. And not just, okay, I'm going to write a check and now I can be on the ballot. That's a personal opinion, but that's all I do.
Councilmember Grella Fox?
I agree that it's nice to be able to do that. I also agree it would be nice to have the option. If someone wants to pay that fee as opposed to doing that, then at least there's an option. And I think any way that we can get more people to want to be involved is probably the way that we want to work towards.
Councilmember Smiley?
I agree with Deputy Mayor Resnick. There's a certain amount of commitment and seriousness to wanting to do the job that comes with just going out and, talking to your neighbors and saying, hey, I want to be mayor, I want to be councilman, can I get you to sign my petition? Some folks, may just like, oh, I write a check for $50, I get to see my name on the ballot. I just don't, I don't like being able to pay to have your name on it. I think the signatures, invest you and commit you into it in a much more better spiritual way.
I personally would like to keep it the way it is. I mean, it's having you make an effort to go out and campaign for this position rather than just sit back, like Councilmember Smiley says, to sit back and write a check, and that's all we have to do. But it gets you out there, gets you engaged, and gets you ready and meet your public and meet the people that you need to vote. Councilmember Berman.
Just a question for the clerk. How many signatures is it?
Between 50 and 60. No, 40 and 60. 40 and 60.
So it's not like we're asking for a large amount of signatures to get your name on the ballot. I don't see, I guess, where this needs to be changed either.
Councilmember Ketchum.
I agree. Again, this was just put up for discussion. But when it comes to me, one of the other things, aside from just paying and being versus being engaged, is right now the city hasn't had a ton of primary elections for council positions. The fear would just be that now we're incurring, not that it's a bad thing that we have primaries, but to me it would make more sense if people are out collecting signatures. I would feel more comfortable with the city having to then have an election if we meet the thresholds, rather than a bunch of people just decide, I'm going to pay the money to get on the ballot, I'm not going to go campaign, but now we've cost the city a couple $1,000s to have an election in the off year because I felt like doing that, or I have a vendetta against one person. So I'm more in favor of the legwork and the grassroots aspect of going out to get signatures. The only thing I could think of, it might be difficult for individuals who are new to the city, or if they don't know a ton of people, even though they've lived here for a year, or things like that. But to me, it's more the opportunity to go out and meet people.
Okay. Seeing none, I think the consensus has it to leave that as is. And with that, we're going to wrap up the discussion on the charter amendment process for tonight. We'll come back at the first meeting in November, and we'll finish up with the last 3 items under should be discussed. Thank you, council members, for that was a good discussion. Moving on, we have no unfinished business tonight. So move on to the first item under new business is a recommendation to confirm the mayor's appointment of Leslie Payment to the Downtown Development Authority with a term to expire June 30th, 2026, and Dan Williams to the Parks and Rec Commission with a term to expire June 30th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
Support.
Thank you. As Mr. Meredith said earlier, Leslie Payment is on the DDA. She had a previous engagement tonight. She couldn't be here, but she's filling in, going to replace Melanie Kleba, who was a founding member of the DDA and has done a lot of legwork. And talking to Leslie, she's very excited about coming on, and I can see good things coming from her. And in the audience tonight, we have Dan Williams, who's going for the Parks and Rec Commission. Dan, you want to come up to the podium and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Good evening, council members and Mayor Beagle. I did apply for the opening in the Parks and Rec Commission, and now Councilman Berman and everybody else, now you can apply a face to the name that's on the application. I am a longtime Wixom resident. I've been in this community for over 30 years in Wixom, and I look forward to supporting the Parks and Rec Commission and enhancing the success of the city of Wixom. Thank you for the opportunity. Any questions, Mr. Berman?
I do not have any questions.
Thank you, everybody.
Any other questions?
I like them already.
Dan's already attended the Parks and Rec Committee too, so he's very excited to step up onto that role. And thanks, Dan, for stepping up and applying. And with that, I've got a motion and a second. Go ahead, Councilmember Gacho.
Sorry, just in the DDA application, I noted it says both resident and soon-to-be business owner in Wixom. Do we know the business?
Yeah, it's the Michigan, and it's the insurance. What is it?
The Michigan Community Insurance?
Michigan, yeah, community insurance.
In the Kleba building.
Yeah, Michigan
So it's
Community
part of
Insurance. Yeah.
The collection center for insurance people then over there.
Yeah, it's an appropriate last name.
I believe she works for or with the same company. That
Yeah, she works for in the same company, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Wixom resident.
I noted that. That's what I led with.
All right, with that, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to confirm the mayor's appointments of Leslie Payment to the Downtown Development Authority with a term to expire June 30th, 2026, and Dan Williams to the Parks and Rec Commission with a term to expire June 30th, 2024. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Moving on to new business number 2 is a recommendation to participate in the My Deal competitive bid process and accept the bid price from the LaFontaine Automotive Group of Lansing, Michigan, and authorize the purchase of 2 2023 Dodge Durango Pursuit vehicles for $80,500 from capital account number 411-301-973.370's vehicle/police.
So moved.
Chief Legmeyer. We finally get to drill you.
Good evening. So as you have in front of you, as you know, we budgeted for 2 replacement police vehicles this year. Again, we want to stick with the Dodge Durangos. We just took receipt of our order from last year. That's how far behind they are. We haven't got them in service yet, but we're waiting for our outfitter to get done with that build. We should have them in service here pretty soon, but they're vehicles that our officers have selected as the ones that best suit their needs. So we want to stick with them. This year we went to the My Deal website. They've changed things a little bit this year. This bid price is still from last year. It's still good until the end of November. When they come out with the new ones in December, they're not going to really give you a price, they're just going to tell you to call a dealer. And that's what they've told us. So we went ahead and got a couple other bids just to make sure that the LaFontaine price was the best one that we could get. Checked with 2 local dealers, and as you can see, the LaFontaine price is almost $300 less than the other 2 local dealers that we could supply. So I'm requesting permission to go ahead with the order from council.
I believe Wolverine Lake already has a Durango. Have you talked to the officers and
Yes.
how they like it?
They love it. They've got nothing bad to say about those vehicles.
Very good. Any questions? Councilmember Brown?
So, just for my clarification, this wasn't sent out to bid per se, we just asked other dealers for pricing on it?
We asked the other dealers for the pricing on it and took the My Bid, which is the competitive bid process, the My Deal bid through the state of Michigan.
So, for example, the dealer we've been buying our cars from in the past was able to match that price. Are we tied to the My Bid?
No, but this is the best bid that he could give us. We did deal, we called Snepcamp. They're who we bought from last year. They gave us the best price last year. This was the price that he gave us for an order this year. And I went with the lowest bid that we could find.
I guess where I see the difference would be is, you know, buying the vehicles from a dealership in Lansing versus buying them from a local dealer. If we need maintenance or things like that, I mean, isn't it easier to use a local dealer versus having the cars go out to Lansing?
I would agree with you wholeheartedly, and after talking to Walled Lake's chief, they utilize the LaFontaine dealership in Walled Lake for their service on the cars they bought from Lansing.
Yeah.
It's all part of the LaFontaine Automotive Group, so they can still send their cars to the dealership in Walled Lake to
Yeah,
have service.
LaFontaine is their main headquarters is in Lansing, even though they have dealerships all over the state. They have like 46 dealerships or something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Smiley?
Hey, Chief Lakemeyer, just a quickie here. The delay on getting the ones we ordered last year, is it safe to say we could anticipate a lengthy delay with this order too? And more to the point, any concern with the delay? Is it disrupting anything?
The delay, the delay in getting vehicles now, folks, who knows when you're going to get them anymore? I mean, if you order your own vehicle, who knows when you're going to get it? It's the same with us here. We just took delivery of vehicles that we ordered back in December of last year. Just about a month ago, we took delivery of them, and that I was told is fast. In this order, this year, we're being told if you don't order soon, i.e. by December, you're probably not going to have an order taken. The manufacturers are so pushed back, they're so far behind with microchips and all the other things that we're being told. The manufacturers don't make a lot of money on these cars, so they're not going to make that many of them. So once the orders are done, once they say they're done, we're done. They're not taking any more orders. So that's why it was so pressing for me to get in front of the council to hopefully get this order approved.
No, but the question was, is it any worry that it would be disruptive? The vehicles that it would be replacing, they're okay, the fleet's in good shape, we're not going to have a problem, or I should say, or an expense we'd rather not have. We're okay.
Knock on wood and hope nothing happens as we get through, go into the winter months here. But as of right now, we are good. These two vehicles, the two vehicles that we have out there, we do have 2 police department vehicles that will be rolled out of service. One's a 2015 with 88,000 miles and 12,854 hours of service on it. The other one is a 2016 with 56,000 and almost 9,300 hours of service. Those 2 vehicles, according to Mr. Sigmund, need to be rolled out of service. They'll
You
be.
can let them linger a little bit. You know?
Well, with the winter coming, it's not a bad idea.
Just a little statement on the supply chain issues.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you for the data on which 2 are going to come out of service. Will those be rolled down to DPW, or will they go out to auction?
Those 2 that I was just talking about will go out to auction. Their use for us is done. But they will be replaced with a 18 and 19. Those will be rolled down to be used for other service.
So I know we're waiting for tractor trailer supplies out in Howell to do the upfitting and all, but have the guys been able to at least get in them and wheel them around town a little bit?
They've driven around, and everybody gets excited when you get a new car. So yeah, they wanted to take them out and ride them around, but we've kind of.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you have,
Yeah.
because you hate to say, oh man, this is a piece of crap, we should have gone back
No,
to the
they're
floor.
they're very, very excited. They keep asking me over and over about when are we going to get these things out on the road so we can drive in them, get them striped and get everything put on them. And much like the car manufacturers, the aftermarket suppliers are way behind schedule too. So we'll get them to them as quickly as we can to get them out on the road and get these cars rotated around.
So we feel comfortable about all the ads of how great they handle, how much acceleration, cornering and turning radius.
Everything every department I've talked to that has these vehicles, and there's a lot of them. MSP has them, West Bloomfield drives them, Walled Lake, Wolverine Lake, I believe, has one. They all rave about them. So I'm very excited to get our equipment on them and see how they actually handle it. It'll be exciting for the guys.
Very good, thank you.
Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. So when we voted on the last Durango, we were told that it wasn't cheaper than the Ford Explorer. And being that this is the same pricing, as I understand, was something updated in the Ford Explorer that, aside from the need for new equipment and whatnot, is the car itself more expensive than the Durango is now?
I don't know the exact number for the Ford, but I do know the Fords went up in price this year about $5,000. So the Durango and the Explorers are now very similar in price. The Chevy Tahoe is about $2,000 to $3,000 more. We didn't look at the Tahoe yet, but I know the Explorer and the Durango now. I don't know the exact numbers, but they're very, very similar now.
Okay. I would just be more comfortable having the comparisons. That's what we had last time, even though it was sprung on us when Chief Moore was standing there, because the numbers had come in late on the Explorer. But I would be more comfortable if we had the comparison of cars, to know that this is a better deal or close to a similar deal. It's also a little disconcerting that we haven't had a bunch of time spent in the Durango and using it for policing activities so much, since it's not fully in service and not put together the way we need it. I understand the need to get things ordered if we want them in a timely manner. I don't know that our two cars that we're rolling out are to the point that they're going to fall apart necessarily if we don't get this ordered right away. But for me, I'm going to be a no on this, primarily because we don't have a lot of experience with the Durango yet, and that was a big change, and we weren't provided a comparison of the vehicle types here. Thank you.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a minor thing, but the first paragraph in the administrative summary says, Council approved the transition to Dodge Durango pursuit vehicles for the police department. I don't think that's really true. We approved to buy 2 Dodge Durangos, and there's a difference there. Although now, if we get 3 and 4 vehicles, we're kind of proceeding down that path to being a Dodge fleet without any history. However, warranty question was brought up, the Councilmember Behrman, and the warranty is provided by the Chrysler Corporation. Any authorized dealer can work on those vehicles for any warranted items. Usually, the upfitters are trained by Chrysler or the OEM on how to upfit so they don't damage the vehicle. And then, there might be some go back and forth between the upfitter and the dealer or something if there's a problem. So when vehicles are in warranty, I'm not too worried about how well the Dodges hold up versus Explorers. And if the police officers prefer the Durangos, although I have to say, how do they know they prefer the Durangos when we don't have any yet? We hear about it from other departments, so I'm a little concerned there. But I did want to ask about the budget line item. The line item says $112,000 budget versus $80,500 projected expense. I assume the 112 included the upfitting charge. And do we still fit inside the 112 when we have 80,000 of vehicle costs?
Yes, our estimate is that that will still be fine.
Okay.
And that is for the upfitting cost.
Okay, so it's, I don't know whether it would be in 112 total, but with upfitting at 80,500 for two, will still be under 112,000 budget.
That's what we believe it'll fall that way. I mean, it's hard to say right now.
Yeah, okay. Have we gotten the bill from our current upfitters?
No, we're still waiting to get the cars to them.
Yeah.
So.
We must have.
But we've used the same outfitters for years, and they have told us that it's Cruisers out of Brighton, and they already have the equipment for the cars that we have. They've already purchased that. It's ready to roll. If this is approved and we can get these cars ordered, then we will have them start giving us prices on the stuff we need for these vehicles. Because there's a big lag time for them just to get the seats and the lights and the sirens and all of that stuff, just like everything else.
Okay, thank you.
Director Sigma, we brought some Durangos down, correct? And the police officers, how long did we have those Durangos, and how long did they drive them? And
I know that the police officers have driven the different Durangos. I'm not sure how long they had them for.
Okay.
I know our mechanic, I questioned him about the Durangos earlier this year, and between the two, the Explorer and the Durango, they felt that the Durango was a better value at the time.
But they spent enough time in the vehicles too to do the comparison and between the Durango and the Ford and with comfort wise and pursuit wise and things like that. So they know we're not really going into this blind.
No.
Okay.
No, they drove them. They have acceleration that was a priority for them. The space with all the gear that they have around their waist and stuff, they had good fit as far as the seats that were there. They felt that was a little larger in that area, and comfort wise for sitting in them for how many hours during the day, they felt that was a better value too. So
okay.
They did go.
Thanks. Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I recall that that Chief Moore, former Chief Moore, went through, the pros and cons of and what went into the decision to transition in, the fleet, to Durangos. I was under the impression we weren't going to, mix them up. We were going to, from now going forward, have Durango. So, obviously I don't have the details in front of me from those minutes, but it was my understanding that the Wixom Police fleet was transitioning to Durangos, and that's so that I think that statement is correct in our administrative summary.
Councilmember Berman.
All I'll have to say is I am comfortable moving forward with whatever vehicle our police department wants. They're the ones who have to use it. And my question earlier was more about the process and the dealership than it was the actual vehicle. And I would prefer to have, I think it looks better, eventually all of our police vehicles look the same. And I think one of the reasons why we talked about switching to the Durango last year was because the Ford vehicle was changing. So if we were to go back to the Ford vehicle now, we have some of the older Ford model, we have some of the Durango, some of the newer Ford model. I think consistency, it would just make us look cleaner and nicer. So I'm fine with this as proposed, and I'll be voting yes.
There you go. All right, seeing none, I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to participate in the MyDeal competitive bid process and accept the bid from the bid price from LaFontaine Automotive Group of Lansing, Michigan, and authorize the purchase of two 2023 Dodge Durango Pursuit vehicles for $80,500 from capital account number 411-301-973.370 vehicles/police. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Behrman?
Yes.
Councilmember Gotchel?
No.
Councilmember Grunland Fox?
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp?
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley.
Aye.
Mayor Beagle.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Aye.
6 yes, 1 no.
Very good, thank you. Motion passes. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, folks.
Moving on to new business number 3 is a recommendation to award a change order for water taps, water and sewer system repairs, water valve repairs, and water and sewer main installations as approved in Oakland County procurement process contract number 006-093//601010 to D'Angelo Brothers of Farmington Hills, Michigan for a term of the contract through June 30th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
Hello?
Support.
Go ahead, Deputy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a contract, it's an ad for a change order for pricing. The primary reason for this was the cost of metals. The water taps that D'Angelo has been doing cost more now than they used to, and what was predicted 3 years ago when the contract began. This is Oakland County bid process that we were utilizing for this contract, and we've over the past years we've utilized D'Angelo and found their value to the city. There's many different accounts that we work out of for this, for the water and sewer accounts. Some of it is capital, some of it's maintenance, and then others are replacement parts for permits that are added in as new construction develops. And yeah, I'd be open to questions for this piece here.
All right. Getting up easy tonight. I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to award a change order for water taps, water and sewer system repairs, water valve repairs, and water and sewer main installations as approved in Oakland County procurement process contract number 006-093//601010 to D'Angelo Brothers Incorporated of Farmington Hills, Michigan for a term of the contract through June 30th, 2023. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. New business number 4 is a recommendation to approve the contract with People's Express Incorporated to provide transportation services for the city of Wixom and authorize the mayor to sign the contract. Do I have a motion?
Support.
Ms. McGee.
Basically, since 2013, the city has utilized People's Express for our senior transportation program. They have come and approached all the communities that they are working with for a revised contract. The 3 to 4 items that are outlined are changes to the contract. One would be, the first one would renew automatically with the agreement of both parties. The second is the fee would increase from $25 a ride to $28, and the transportation fares for the riders would go from $4 to $6, and for disabled from $2 to $3. So we're recommending that you approve the People's Express contract at this point in time.
Thank you. 2 things. If the contract is renewed automatically, you'll inform us that it was renewed. You guys are, okay. And then at the end, it says we utilized $13,262 from the SMART transport. If the millage proposal passes, will we get more money for a donation of $890,000 to that fund?
I'm not sure exactly how that will work. Mr. Brown might want to address that, but our normal portion that we have asked for reimbursement for SMART has been the $13,362.
So we decided on this front that for a while we were determining what was going to happen on the transit millage when the news first broke, type of thing. At this point in time, we decided to move forward with the contract because regardless of whether the transit millage passes or fails, there's going to be a period of time where if it passes, there's going to be an adjustment period. Any determination of new services as has been brought up as a concern. There's not any real plan for how services are going to be increased in the communities that are not currently served by SMART, like Wixom as an opt-out community. As you know, the transit millage was put forward by the county commissioners as a different approach to the millage. In the past, there was a smart millage, and as such, with the smart millage, it was subject to a state law that allowed for opting out. The city of Wixom had been an opt-out community over the years from the smart millage. This millage that was put before the voters is an Oakland County millage, and as such, there is no opt-out provision because it's not subject to that state law that was subject to underneath the smart millage practice. So if that passes, as you mentioned, it'd be about $800 and some odd thousand that'd be coming out of the city budget, as opposed to the expenditure that we have in front of you here, which we use for demand response transportation services through People's Express at about $41,888 is what I remember is the total dollar amount. We're going to see what happens in terms of, depending on the outcome of the millage election that's happening on November 8th. There's an informational piece that the city has on our website and other locations at our YouTube channel. If people want to learn more about the transit millage, we'd encourage you to take a look there. Go to our website, you can click on it from there, or you can go to our YouTube channel and see it there as well. So bottom line is we brought the contract forward because we had let it sit for a while because we were trying to determine what was happening on the millage front. Now I think it's appropriate to move it forward.
Very good. Any more questions? Councilmember Berman?
Thank you. I guess my question would be is if that millage does pass, and that's what, 850,000.
840, I think, was the last estimate that I had.
Tax to our residents here. Is this a service that Smart would then be providing themselves, so we wouldn't need this service? Okay.
I wouldn't say that that's correct. Correct.
So we'll be paying $850,000 or $40,000 to possibly get this service.
Right.
Versus paying $40,000 to get the service.
Right. As I said, there's going to be some decisions that would have to be made. I don't know if Smart would choose to, purchase additional equipment and somehow supply the service on their own. Whether they would contract with third-party providers like People's Express, I think, could be in the equations in the future as well. It's TBD. There's a lot of questions right now. We don't know what the answer will be until after that occurs, if it does pass.
And if the millage does pass, we have the ability to, with reasonable notice, get out of this contract.
Yes, more reasonable notice than we used to have. They had a provision in there that was for a certain number of days, and I asked for a reduction in that because of my concern over what might happen with the millage. It's still not zero or anything. I think we negotiated it downward to 90 days, so 3 months is a pretty decent amount of time. I think it'll take a while to get any plans in place if the millage does pass at the Oakland County level.
Thank you. Good negotiating.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
I'm just remarkable that it's only a 12% increase per trip since 2013, is that correct?
No, they increased it 2 years ago. Before then, we were really getting by with the least amount of expenses for it, but it's been coming up more equitable for the company as well as.
And so now there'll be a review each year, the contract, which is reasonable. Okay. Very good.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you. This is for Steve, really. I think everybody knows I'm, very much against that millage. But if that ill-conceived item does pass, what's the harm in waiting a couple of weeks to find out? I mean, it's 2 weeks from tonight. We'll know whether that passes.
It was discussed, and it was just whether it passes. If it passes, we're going to need the status quo. If it doesn't pass, there's going to be at least a multi-month period of time. As it has been discussed, we're going to have there was a discussion at the county level about a process of obtaining local feedback and putting it together, making plans. It's going to be a long period of time, even if it does pass. So I thought it was appropriate to bring it forward. You could wait and see, but yeah, I think you'd want to have the service in place regardless for the period of time that would likely come into play, even if it passes.
That sounds very wise, yes. I just wanted to check. Thank you.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to confirm what City Manager Brown said, Section 14 does say 90 days for no reason other than convenience. So
it was 120 to begin with.
The county will start taking our money right away, but it'll be a while before the services are provided. So thank you. That was it.
And to put a finer point on it, it's been mentioned a couple times. I believe it's $840,000 was the estimate that the finance director has given to me. So you're looking at about an $800,000 expenditure difference for the city of Wixom if this does pass.
Oh, where will that money go?
Stay tuned. All right, seeing no further questions, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to approve the contract with People's Express Incorporated to provide transportation services for the city of Wixom and authorize the mayor to sign the contract. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. And that concludes the new business portion of tonight's meeting and brings us to the second call to the public. I'll read those rules again. They are as follows. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council. And all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do I have anybody for the second call to the public? Seeing none, I'll close second call to the public and move on to city manager's comments. City Manager Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. On the city manager update, was the work anniversaries are in there with range of service from 3 to 12 years. And the other item that I had in there was fire department, more recruiting news. There was a memo that was provided to council at the prior council meeting about things that were happening on that front. Subsequent to that memo, there was additional information that came forward. It was going to be just in time to be too late for a formal memo from the interim fire chief, so I decided to put it in the city manager update. So good recruiting news on the paid on call and auxiliary firefighter front. At the time, it was 8 new applicants. Subsequent to that, we've got another update. It's now up to 9 new applications. We had another come in since the council packet was put together. And I do have some updates as to what's happened with those 9 applicants, if you will. There are 4 applicants that have passed the background check and have reached a point in time where they would proceed on to the next step in the screening process. There's a psychological evaluation that gets done on all employees in the fire and police department. So they'll be scheduled for the psychological evaluation next week. There's 1 additional applicant that did in fact pass the background check as well since that time period, but wasn't able to get in that upcoming week, so they'll be scheduled for the psychological exam as well. And then the 4 remaining applicants that we have are in that background check phase of the process, so they're going through that process where we're checking to see if there's anything of concern in their background before we proceed to the psychological analysis. So 9 new applicants, good news for paid on call or auxiliary firefighters. And when I had a conversation with the chief today, I congratulated him with the interim fire chief, Brad Geisler. I congratulated him on the success and said keep the pedal to the metal on this and make sure that we're still pursuing solicitation for new recruits, because 9's great, but 20 would be better. So we're going to keep working at it. But good initial results with recent activity in the fire department, so we're pleased to share that with you. And that's all I have.
Great news.
Yes, absolutely.
Assistant City Manager Benson, do you have anything? And don't talk slow.
It doesn't matter. No, the only thing I'll say is I know the mayor and I missed each other at the most recent ribbon cutting for California Closets in their new 30,000 square foot facility.
It's beautiful.
It really is. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that new business. They should have over 50 new employees to the city of Wixom in that new facility, and it's a great addition to the community. And that's all I had.
Yeah. And check the latest edition of Our Magazine too. So, council comments. Council Member Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is great news about the interest in the firefighter needs we have here. That was welcome to read. Thank you to the appointees. It's always gratifying to see folks in Wixom give their time and talents. Mr. Williams, thank you very much, and Ms. Payment as well. That's great news. Everybody please have a safe and happy Halloween this week. Watch out for kids driving around. And then, of course, 2 weeks from tonight, we have a big night here for our clerks, Kathy and Crystal. I hope the night goes very smoothly and without incident.
Thank you, me too.
Councilmember Gatchel.
Thank you. I also wanted to say thank you to our newest committee members, and also congratulate Jody Gallo for graduating from the Michigan Public Safety Institute program. So that slipped into Mr. Sigma's report there, so that's very nice. Thank you.
Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I wanted to thank Mr. Williams for sticking with us for almost 2 hours here. Well done. And thank you for your service to the city. And also thanks to Ms. Payment. And she probably made the smart choice of having a previous engagement. Anyway, I also want to thank Director Sickma, the Hawk's Eyes up. Now, I've been out of town, so I've only seen it at night. Not a single person's gone by yet, so I haven't gotten to judge the timing of the lights on the Hawk's Eye. And also, yeah, I got to stop and push the button when Berman's driving by. The concrete pour in Wexford, I don't know if all the city council members have had an opportunity yet, but it's really been a pretty high quality event. We've had some graffiti artists in the wet concrete, but Tim's and the concrete team have gotten out there and fixed it pretty handily, including brick sanding some markings in mine that I had. So I appreciate that was kind of spur of the moment. They stopped to help and fix that situation. So thank you to you and your team, Tim. Thanks.
Councilmember Berman.
Thank you. Just wanted to mention that I did read in the minutes for some of our for Parks and Rec and the DDA about the planning for a new playscape behind the library. As a father of a bunch of children that really love playscapes, I think that would be a very nice addition downtown. And I'm glad to see that we're moving forward with that, or at least that there's planning for that. Very positive news for the fire department. I'm happy to see that. And big thank you to Leslie Payment and Dan Williams for stepping up to get more involved in the community. I appreciate that. And I couldn't end my comments without publicly wishing a happy birthday to our police chief hiding in the back of the room there. So happy birthday, sir.
Thank you.
Are you going to sing?
Absolutely not.
Councilmember Grellin Fox.
I too would like to thank Mr. Williams and Ms. Payment for volunteering and stepping up to be on those boards and commissions. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank all of those employees who are celebrating work anniversaries. And then I do have a question. Great news on the recruitment for the fire department. It's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. I was going to bring it up before I saw your message to us, your update. I was looking at some recruitment flyers that actually were sent to me by some employees, and they had said no psychological required on the flyer. So when you had mentioned that they're still going through, if you could maybe look into that?
Yeah, I don't recall seeing that on the brochure, but I'll double check that, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. But yeah, that's great. I'm so happy to hear that the recruitment efforts are paying off.
My information was hot off the presses today, so hopefully that was the right information. So there might have been a mistake on the flyer, but I'll double check.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you, Mayor. I also would like to thank Leslie Payment and Dan Williams for stepping up and volunteering. That's great. If you have got any other friends, there's still some vacancies on some of our boards and commissions. And a big thank you to Russ Meredith, who is now chair of the DDA. Thank you very much. Also, just be careful. Halloween is right around the corner. Some of our newer subs are just flush with small children and running around, and it's going to be, hopefully we'll have good weather again this year, and watch out.
All right, thank you.
Oh, and get out and vote.
Thank you to Dan Williams, and thank you to Leslie Payment for stepping up and volunteering and on your board and commission. It's much appreciated. We're making progress on those. I think we have, on all our boards and committees, we have 4 vacancies left, so we're making strides there, but we still need help. So if you're out there watching, you want to be an active member of the city, go online, fill out the application. Great news on the firefighting end of the news tonight, and I'd like to congratulate the 10 employees celebrating work anniversaries. And please get out and vote on November 8th. There's a lot of interesting candidates and a lot of interesting proposals that are out there. It's your right. It's the only thing they can't take away from you is voting, so please vote. And the last thing I got to say tonight is go blue. So with that, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Very good. Thank you, everybody.